Good morning, everyone. I'm just setting up here. Right. Can someone give me a wave to say that you can actually see the slides?
Yeah, we can see them fine. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Mel, for inviting us to share some of our project plans. There's still very much in its infancy, I should say, as well. But I'll share as much as I can. So really what we are looking at is our smart wiki home project. So earlier this year, we decided that actually we want to buy a home, but we are a bit disheartened by the state of the properties here in the UK and also the high property prices. And we didn't really consider to buy to build our own home actually to start with. But while we were, looking into properties, we, were reminded of this Dutch documentary that we saw a couple of years ago that mentioned WikiHouse. And while we were looking that up and, refreshing our memories, that happened to be at the same time as the launch of Skylark back in February. And I promise that was really just a coincidence. And then, of course, we got really excited. So we started looking into it more. And when we started this project, we really made, a commitment for this to be an open source project. So as you've probably noticed already, we will share everything we do and what we learn with the community as well. And you've probably seen as well that we release our designs and our schemes on GitHub. But we're also very keen to learn from others. So I'm very excited to hear from other people today as well. So I'll talk you through our plans for our smart wiki home and how we got there as well. So to start with, I'll talk a little bit more about the design principles behind our Wiki Smart Home project, because it's a combination of different design principles. So WikiHouse, of course, is the foundation of it, and that gives us the flexibility and ownership. And then we can also build on our existing experience with a smart home functionality and also our desire and our preferences for a net zero home. So that's, the key principles behind this project. And with WikiHouse, we are really focused on ownership of the design. So we're looking specifically at, utilizing energy efficient opportunities, including the airtight chassis that you can create with WikiHouse, but also making sure that we can choose our services infrastructures, we can choose the appliances that go into our home, and all of that can be controlled in a smart way. And it also means that we can make sure that actually we have electricity in some odd places as well, so that we can power smart home sensors. So that's, the design principle for WikiHouse, why we love it and why we use that as our foundation. And then the second element of it is smart home integrations. So we will use Home Assistant as the software to power our smart home. And that actually means that the house will know our preferences. And what that means in practice is that we can make sure that energy is only used when there's someone there to benefit from it. And that can take its form in terms of adjusting the climate indoors automatically based on where we are in the house, our own preferences, but also the weather forecast. And we've already tried a couple of these things, and I will show you that later on. So what all of that looks like, what I just explained to you, we've made kind of like a diagram of it, but I won't bore you with the diagram at the moment, but this is also on our GitHub if you want to have a look at it in more detail. But this is basically a summary of what I just explained of how we use WikiHouse, Smart Home, and hopefully all of that will come together in our Wiki Smart Home project. So as I said, we started in February, really looking into WikiHouse Skylark, and we started with actually, if we want to build with Skylark, we need to understand how the system works. So the first thing we did is actually practice, really trying to understand how the blocks work, how the blocks combine with the combs. And so we spent hours, and I literally mean hours, practicing with the Skylark blocks, and we created multiple designs to really help our thinking. So we rebuilt the Skylark model that was on display in London back in February, which we were lucky enough to visit as well. We then also tried to build a simple house, which is not based on living, but just, you know, to practice with, you know, what a simple house would look like. And then we also practice with the roof forms that are currently available. So that is the gable roof and using the floor beams as a flat roof as well. And then the final practice that we looked at was moving away from the simple design kits to the more detailed design kits and looking at how the ties and the pegs work together to actually combine and connect all the blocks into a strongly formed assembly. And I'm hoping I'm using the right terms here, but I'm sure the WikiHouse team can correct me if I'm not if I'm not using the correct terms. And as I mentioned, all of our designs and practice we shared on GitHub, and we've also created a starter design kit where the combs have already been fitted to the standard floor end blocks, and that makes it easier just to start practicing, so you don't lose time thinking which end combs fit together to fit on the end floor blocks as well. And then the final thing we did in terms of our practice and our orientation is we made some videos on YouTube to help people learn quicker than we did, because as I said, I really spent hours trying to figure it out. And hopefully this will help people to learn much quicker than I did. And so you don't have to lay awake at night thinking, but how does that comb fit in? So hopefully that will help people. The second element, which I'm really excited about, is we were able to visit the first WikiHouse home that was built. So of course, when we started our project, we started reading up on WikiHouse and other projects that happened globally. And that's when we realized that the Wiki farmhouse was actually only a 2-hour drive away from us. So we reached out to Janet and Martin, the owners of the WikiHouse, the Wiki farmhouse, and we were lucky enough that we were able to visit them last month, which already feels like years ago, but it was only last month. And we really learned some great tips from them. It was, first of all, it was just really good to see a WikiHouse in real life. And of course, this was, this is not built with Skylark, but it's just really good to see the principle come to life. And there's a couple of tips that we learned from there, which I'll just share with you. The first one is that windows are absolutely crucial to, create a light and pleasant home. And you may think from the photo of their house that I've put up that because you enter from the side of the home that you're thinking, oh, that actually looks quite dark because there's not windows. But actually they've been really thinking about where to put the windows on the sides of the home. So actually when you enter, it is really quite bright and it feels quite spacious because they also use some skylight windows. So that really made us think, okay, we need to think cleverly about where we put our windows and our doors to create that space. The second element is they used mechanical ventilation with a heat recovery system, which is something that we really want to implement in our home as well. And that makes sure, their home is airtight, but they barely need to use any heating. And the mechanical ventilation means there's always enough fresh air inside, and it really felt quite pleasant inside. Of course, us living in London, we're quite used to air pollution. So, just going out to them, it just felt quite pleasant visiting that home. And then the third element is, and, this may be just me being, not having considered things, but the third element is that your home entrance will be higher than you think. So I've put an arrow on the slide for you to see that, because of how you build with WikiHouse, you build your walls on top of your floors. And so that means that your home entrance with the door will be higher than the actual ground floor. So in Skylark terms, that means that your house entrance will be at least 38 centimeters above the ground. And then the final 2 points, which is really what we are focusing on in our project at the moment, is that you need to plan your home layout and your services, because that will save you lots of time and money as well. And that you will need to speak to your council about your ideas and getting planning permission as well to actually be able to build your home. And having your design will actually help with getting planning permission. So now on to the more exciting part in terms of, what does our project look like? So we focus at the moment on 2 elements of it. So first is, what will it look like? And second, how much will it cost? So for our chassis considerations, so the external layout of the home, we actually took some inspiration from what is happening in the Netherlands. So we talked to Vincent from WikiHouse Netherlands to learn more about the standard house sizes or the basistype in the Netherlands that they have developed. So our house ultimately, the size of the house will be determined by the standard blocks of WikiHouse Skylark. But the way we have modeled it at the moment is a combination of WikiHouse Netherlands and Skylark. So we have used the large standard house model, I suppose, from the Netherlands, which uses 8 floor spaces, and that corresponds to 16 Skylark floor beams, and that is a total of 9.6 meters internal length. And then we've also used the current Skylark L width for the house, which gives us a 5.4 meter internal span. And all of that together will hopefully create a 2-story house that has a total of 51.8 square meters per floor. And what that looks like if you model with Skylark is this. So on the left side, it is the front of the house, and the right side, yeah, that's correct. So you would enter on the side of the house here, and then, oh, that's the wrong slide. And then the right side of the slide is the back of the house, where we really want to have large window spaces. At the moment, that is modeled with two different doors next to one another to create large windows. So based on this design, we've calculated how much that would cost approximately. So we've used the Excel sheet that the WikiHouse team created that is part of the design kits. When you download the design kits from the WikiHouse website, it comes with an Excel sheet. So we've calculated that the design that you've just seen is just under £30,000. And I hope I did the calculations correctly there for people from other countries on the call. And this is without the roof. So we would like to use the gable roof so that we can maximize space for solar panels. So that is not included yet in this calculation or in the design that you just saw. So this cost is based on using 195 blocks, including combs, and it's also based on an average cost of plywood that is £42 per sheet of plywood. And the manufacturing costs are based on the estimates that were given by the WikiHouse team in the Excel sheet. And as you can see, this will take approximately 295 hours to build, but most of that time comes from manufacturing. So that would take around 204 hours. And again, that's based on the estimates that were given by the WikiHouse team. So all of this is, again, I've shared it on our GitHub already ahead of this presentation. So after this presentation, you can go and have a look, and you can look at the Excel sheet. And if I've made a mistake, please let me know as well. So that's all available. And then the final few points is, of course, we have the external layout. We are now looking at the internal layout. So really looking at, okay, what kind of internal rooms can we create? So we used another open source and free to use design app, which is Sweet Home 3D. And what we're looking at the moment, this is a first version. So this is like our first draft, looking at, okay, what kind of rooms can we create? And then we can start looking at the installation. Where does that go? Of course, around the house, but also where do our services go, and where do we need to make connections? So as I said, this is a first draft, but as you can see, we want to make sure that we have enough space for at least 2 study rooms in our home, as well as we will probably be working from home, and we have lots of hobbies that we need space for. And then finally, what does a smart wiki home or smart wiki house look like for us? And this is really Toon's design mostly, but I'll try to explain it for you. So we are building Home Assistant integrations into our current home to test functionality and explore more possibilities. So what we're able to do in our current home is limited. We're renting in London, but it's still useful because it actually serves as a testing ground for WikiHouse. And what you can see on this slide here are some examples of what we've done already. So we've made integrations where heating in the morning depends on the weather forecast in the afternoon, and that saves us energy. Home Assistant also estimates when we wake up and warms up the breakfast area slightly before this. And that means that we have less energy wastage compared to dumb or non-smart time schedules. And also our heating goes off automatically when we leave the home, so we don't need to remember to actually switch anything off. And then the second element, which is really quite important for our WikiHouse project, is that we're looking into solar panels. So we currently do not have any solar panels ourselves because we don't own our own roof. But Teun is working with his parents to help them understand their solar panels better. So they live on a small farm in the Netherlands, and he's been working with them on their solar panels, and it helps evaluate when energy should be used. So the examples that you see here include actually keeping track of the energy consumption of their home, and then also the energy production of the solar panels. And then the graph on the right actually shows monitoring the performance of the solar panels and its location. And in the future, they will also look at using two systems for heating the shower. So using either electricity or gas, depending on how much energy is produced by the solar panels. And we use all of this learning and reflection for the planning of our own smart wiki home. So finally, what's next? Unfortunately, we think it will take another few years actually before we can build our own home. And there's many reasons for that. I try to summarize them here. The main reason is that we need to finalize our home design plans. And that means we need to take a lot into consideration, including sustainable building standards, but also optimizing the chassis layout, based on the sloping roofs, stairs, maybe even skylight windows, and of course create a full cost breakdown. And once we have that design ready, we can then talk to councils about planning permission. But crucially, very crucially, we don't own any land yet. So we also have to find and purchase land. So we shouldn't underestimate how much time and energy that will cost. And that's it really. As I mentioned at the start, we really want this to be an open source project. So we, as you've probably seen, we are not only sharing the end result, but also our work in progress. And we really look forward to learning from the WikiHouse community here as well. So yeah, looking forward to chatting with you later today and in the next few weeks. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Jen. That was brilliant. I remember when you first got in touch saying, oh, have you got a display in London? And I was like, yeah, go and see it. And I can't believe that was only in February and you've come so far. Yeah. And I think we all really appreciate how open you guys are being, just sharing the whole process. And again, thanks for presenting this just now, for going first. I'm just going to swiftly move on to Amber because I know she's been waiting, and I'm going to make you a co-host as well, Amber, just in case the system is a bit funny. But yeah, the floor is yours.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Is it clear or is it echoey? I'm just not sure. Okay.
Fine.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I will share my screen and just see how we go here. We are in the future here as well, just to let you all know. So,
what time is it where you are?
It is 7:30 p.m. or almost 8 p.m. at night on Thursday. Yeah.
Yep, you're definitely in the future.
Okay, so can you all see that?
Yes, you're good.
All right, let me just pull up my notes so that I don't, otherwise I'll just talk off script. Why is that not coming up? Okay, well, I'll just talk off script because I can't find my notes. Ko te manui kai ana e te mero nō nā tēnā here. Ko te manui kai ana e te mātauranga nō nā te ao. Ngā mihi nui ki ngā kai whakahaere ki ngā kai whakahaere mō te kaupapa o te rā nei. Mihi nui ki ngā kaihanga me ngā kai whakahaere o WikiHouse, ko Amber Craig taku ingoa, ko Tūkotahi Phillips tēnei, ngā mihi nui ki a koutou katoa. So that was just a little bit of a mihi in, or a welcoming in Te Reo Māori. So we are both Māori and we are Indigenous people from New Zealand, Aotearoa. And so what I just shared with you was a bit of a whakatauki or a proverb that talks around, if you just eat from the forest, the birds will only ever experience the forest. But if you eat from knowledge, you will be given the world, essentially. And so this is a little bit of our project here, which we refer to as Te Whare Hangahanga. And what Te Whare Hangahanga actually means is the house of making. And kia hanga is to build, and how we've been utilising WikiHouse here for our whānau, our family, in a place called Wairarapa. So I was born and bred here in the Wairarapa, which is on the North Island. And Tūkotahi here, he was born in, or he comes from a place called Whanganui, which is up the awa, and it's most famously known because the awa is actually now a legal person in society. So we're a little bit about challenging systems here. And Tūkotahi has lived in the UK. And I just want to thank as well WikiHouse for inviting us to come and have this kōrero, and Jen as well, because I love your YouTube videos. And we've been watching them late at night as well, to try and come up to speed on SketchUp and all those types of things. So let me just see if I can go next. So really, just to set the scene a little bit, I kind of have to talk about the past and who we are. So the past, ka mua, for us is really important. So we have a whakatauki that talks about how we can only walk into the future if we're walking backwards, staring at our past and knowing who we are as people. So the past for us, this is the whakatauki. Kia whakatō muri te haere whakamua. So I walk backwards into the future with my eyes fixed on my past. And so this is our past. This is it was carbon dated, I think, back to the 800s, maybe the 1200s, between that kind of bracket AD. And this was found off the coast of Wairarapa. This is what we refer to as a raupo whare, and it's Mako Tukutuku is the name of it. And this is now in our National Museum in a place called Wellington, for those that may know the geography around New Zealand. And this is a place which used to keep us warm and dry, and our whānau would stand up very quickly when they needed it, or they would burn it down and reset it. But everything we lived in what we refer to as Te Ao Māori, we live in harmony with nature is the best way that I can put it. We come from the land, we descend from it, and so therefore we need to look after it, and it will in turn look after us. So this is the context of where our people have come from, especially my whānau or my family. And so when we're looking around, and a bit like Eugene, we have massive issues with housing in New Zealand. A lot of our family especially are displaced really. So this is our ancestral home, the land that we're living on right now. And a lot of our family cannot even return back to this land because they can't afford housing, they can't even afford rentals. And so what we used to live in was whare or housing like that, and what was referred to as a papa kainga, and that was a communal living environment where we would all support each other. Hungry, no, there were no cold damp homes, and actually now in New Zealand we think the government says that a third of all homes in New Zealand are cold and damp, and we actually think that that number is a lot higher. And so not only when we do get homes, they're actually killing us with respiratory diseases and other issues. So this project has kind of kicked off from that sort of background and understanding that context into what we're trying to do here in a little place called Wairarapa in New Zealand, Aotearoa. And so when we sat down and looked at also the homeless rates of our family here, it's pretty horrendous. And so when we started to look at how we address this problem, to bring our whānau home, we need to house them, or to bring our family home, we need to house them. And the first step to healing our people is also to house them, be healthy, be fit. So we looked at this project, which is the WikiHouse Pavilion. And so this is one of the things we started to do. And we thought, well, if we're going to try and build all these things out, what we should actually do is practice. And so most of these designs are on 18 mil plywood. So we went to 3 mil MDF. So we built a 1/6 scale. Oh, hang on, I've lost my cursor. So we built a 1/6 scale whare of a lot of this. This is actually some of the, I've mixed up some of the photos, but some of you may recognize where that's from. And so we built the WikiHouse Pavilion. And then from there, what we then decided to do was to get a little bit more creative, because that was we got the hang of that. And so we moved to the WikiHouse Wren micro house. And so from there, what we actually did was we started to build that out in a 1/6 scale. And what we actually have, I'll try and show you in the warehouse a little bit of a zoom shot, but we actually have a lot of those models still here, just to show people the progression of where we've come from. And we actually put clear acrylic on one side of the 1/6 scale whare so that people could actually see in. We've created little 1/6 scale furniture as well to just show the potential of where our whānau could go. And so from there, what we actually did was the Skylark. So from Jen's tutorial, Tūkotahi was actually able to build up this little sketch of how we wanted to progress and try out Skylark for ourselves. It was actually the 1/6 scale of the micro house that we used as justification to crowdfund a CNC router. So we basically said, here's the vision, here's what we're trying to do in New Zealand. And so we had some investment of about 20K of personal investment. And then from there, we've crowdsourced the rest from basically the New Zealand public on Twitter, who have then put in lots and lots of money to be able to help us buy a 2500 by 1500 CNC router. From there, we've now kind of sketched this out. And so, I'm a little bit talking ahead of myself. So we got the Genesis G1325R. And so this is the machine with one of our very first combs that we did. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So we started, because the best thing for us here is we're all about hands-on, I don't know if I can swear, but getting shit done kind of people. And so what we did was we started to put out the combs. The best way to test this is really just to go out and do it. And so Jen, I really want to thank you, because the combs made a lot more sense when we looked at your model and could dissect it and turn it around. And I think it really just helped us going forward. And so what we've been able to do is we've been very lucky that this gentleman who owns Macaulay's Transport, he has this big warehouse, and we kind of told him the journey on what we're trying to do. Our kaupapa, or our project, is to house our whānau on our own land, and he bought into it. And so he's kind of given us half of this warehouse to be able to stand up and help us install the machine, and then we're able to do stuff on site here. And then we're not dependent on the weather elements and stuff like that and having to cover everything up all the time. So from there, we then started to look at ends, and we've just slowly been progressing and working out each module as we go and building up our confidence. As you can see, this wall part here, for probably all the engineers will see that it's not aligned and it's a little bit smaller. So we had someone come in and just shrink it down a little bit. And we can talk a little bit about some of the things that we've learnt as we've gone. We did at the end. So this is definitely a shrunk down version of the wall, but it was just to support our door frame, because we realized that long bit of plywood there, the 18 mil, is actually quite, without the wall structures, it's flimsy, I guess, is the best word that I can use. Yeah. So we really needed the wall structures up first before we started with the door frames and stuff like that. So all the things you're learning while you go through this process. We then built our own door, wall to the same, basically to the full size. We haven't shrunk it down at all. And so we were able to continue that process in the floors as well. So the purpose of this entire wall and this end, and what we're trying to do, is build out every single module so that we know how it works, how to put it together, what our build time is, or print time is on the machine, what our build time is, and then how much wood that we need to use. And I want to talk a little bit about that further on. But this is where we've gone to today. So this is what you'll see behind us. I'm not sure if you can see it. So this is the floor in the warehouse that we've got. We've got our machine down here. We're building in the middle here. And all of our little models of our wren house and all that are over here. So we can basically bring in different people, show them where we've come from, how we've progressed, and just continue on like that. It's a great kind of progression story to tell people about where we've started, because I think to start with, it's been a little bit of Amber's crazy idea that she keeps talking about, and we'll not stop hassling a lot of people. And now to be able to show people the real life, what it actually looks like, I think it gives people a great image of where we're heading and what we could do. And so that's just a side on view of where we're at the moment and what we're trying to do. So just a few notes about what we've appreciated and what's gone well for us is the, you can't get it wrong kind of fit. Because we know that when something's not quite fitting, we know that we've got it on wrong. And so turning it around, and I think as well, Jen, your video just talking about the corners and how they can only go on one way, don't try and force them on, was especially good for us. I think as well how intuitive the blocks are and how they come together. They're low investment for us. As Māori within this country, we don't have a lot of money, we don't have a lot of land. We've had a lot of our land taken off of us. And so for us and our family to be able to, with a low investment, so 37K, although it's a lot of money for us, it is actually a low investment in terms of building multiple homes for our people to house them. And so as well for low skills, watching Jen's videos and a few other YouTubers around how to run the CNC router and how to get this all up and running, because we're not builders. I used to be an enterprise architect at banks, pretty much, and Tūkotahis come from IT as well, and risk management. So that for us has been really amazing. What has been a bit difficult is we actually have a plywood shortage in New Zealand, and I would love if our price of plywood was the same as what you'd calculated, Jen, because that would be amazing. But it's about $129 per sheet, including GST, New Zealand. So the other thing that has struck us a little bit is imperial plywood sheets versus metric plywood sheets. So there's the 2440, 1220, which is what a lot of these are designed for. However, in New Zealand, we can really only get 2400 by 1200. And with COVID, that's probably worsened it. So there were some places where they were importing some at those sizings. But yeah, that's been really a challenge for us, especially with the floor parts. So everything has fit to date except for the floor parts. So in particular, we've noticed the floor M, is it A and B, we've had to just bring in, at least for this model, we are not happy that from an engineering point of view, we've had to bring it in a little bit. And I think we're out by about 1.1 centimetre. So that's just something that would be great. And just feedback for yourselves around just when you're translating those designs in New Zealand in terms of our metric system and not being readily available for those, we're struggling a little bit. And I think as well, the bootstrap initial investment for us has made things a bit more complicated. So what I mean there is like the genie lift. We don't necessarily have funds and access to a genie lift right now. Apparently there's a shortage of them. I can't even get a secondhand one. So it's been Tūkotahi and I lifting over the floor, which is probably not the best. We've had a third person come in and try and help us as well. So it's been a lot of, I was going to say manpower, but I'll say people power. It's been a lot of people power to get it over the line, which just poses a bit more complication. But for us, it's not just about building housing. So I really love your talk, Jen, about the smart housing, because that's definitely where we're going. So in New Zealand, a lot of our local councils have very old infrastructure, and a lot of that money has not been used to maintain that infrastructure either. So when we are trying to live in harmony with the environment, it's very hard to flush a toilet that it's going out into our rivers and detrimentally affecting them. So, you know, we're all about renewable energy. We're all about water collection and being able to reuse grey water where we can. And then how do we dispose of black water as well? We really want to know that the impacts on the environment as well. And how when you're in this house, you can see the impacts that you're having to the land around you. And then we're really wanting to go back to communal living as well, because us as a family unit, we really need that communal living, because there were times when we would look after each other and make sure that we are all good. And if one thing COVID has proven for us in New Zealand is that we need our communities to survive. That's how we got through a lot of the lockdowns, and that's how we'll continue to get through if we look after each other. And so for us, ka muri, the future, so at the moment, we're actually about to start workshopping out with our family who are all builders. We want to bring them into the process and start to go, okay, well, there's only so much we want to challenge with our resource consenting or our building consents in New Zealand. And so if we're to build this, what is the low-hanging fruit that we can do to get over the line in terms of continuing on with traditional ways that we build in terms of cladding and all those types of things? We're currently, however, working with who they call themselves the Building Research Association of New Zealand, called BRANDS, and local councils. So the local council here is Carterton District Council. They came in literally on Tuesday and had a look because they've heard all this. I've been talking to them a lot about this project. So them actually getting to see it in real life, they were just kind of blown away and were really supportive. And so they want to work with us very closely around how they can get a resource consenting through, or sorry, building consenting through. But not only that, we're trying to work with universities as well around seismic testing as well, because for us that's very important. And moisture, because with cold, damp homes, that's been a massive issue for us. And then there's an additional thing which we are probably a space where we can be a bit more innovative in, which is how do we go back to some of our traditional methods. And what I mean by that is I sat there and asked my uncle, if we have lived on this land since 700 AD, you can't tell me that we froze our asses off. So how did we used to insulate back in the day? And so he sat there and he told me it was actually raupo. So raupo is a native fiber where we can harvest and be able to use that as insulation. And so from there, that kind of gave us the idea, well, rather than using pink bats, which is a very popular tool within New Zealand for insulation, but it actually has a lot of resin in it, recycled glass and stuff like that, actually maybe we could utilize natural fibers like this. And so that then got us into taking some of the WikiHouse designs, and we've redesigned this little temperature box here. So this is an insulation test box. And what you've got in here is the ability, when I can pull it out, and so we've put a little clear acrylic so you could put your insulation in there, but in here what you can do is put a sensor in. We want to put it out on our land for up to 365 days. So this is just a 1/6 scale version of this. And then we want to test and compare the insulation method across a full year. So we want to put pink bats in one, raupo in another, and some of our other native fibers, and then we'll be able to compare the difference between those insulation methods. And we have a bit of a theory with climate change, because the summers will get hotter and the winters will get colder, that the natural fibers will actually breathe a lot better. And I know that there's also hemp fibers that people have been talking about for insulation, but there's a lot of traditional native fibers that we have in New Zealand, which we used to use for housing. And so this is what we're trying to look to do, something a bit like this, a dashboard where we'll be able to compare across a full year what the insulation temperatures are like. And so that's temperature and humidity and how that affects the environment. Yeah. And so I think one of the questions we have is if we can get our people back home and we can start to remove all the financial costs of living, would we still work? And for our family, that's really important, because we want them to work on helping to make our rivers better. We want them to work on saving some of our native trees for medicines for us. And so actually, if we can remove all the costs so they don't have to go to work and could live, you know, off grid and with our family, would they still need to go to work necessarily? And so this is really about Māori-led futurism, having our family solutions. And for us, when you've lost everything, we have nothing to lose. So we need to dream big because our ancestors pretty much would expect nothing less from us. And so that's pretty much all I wanted to share. Do you want? Okay. I don't know if there's any questions, but I'll stop it there.
That is amazing, Amber. Thank you so much for sharing. And it's so good to see your workshop behind you. Certainly, like, I know that we've been in touch before the launch, you wanting to get started for a while, and to see all that happening behind you is just so brilliant. So thank you. Thanks. I am going to hand over to Lachlan just now because I know he's joined us. Are you here, Lachlan?
Hi, yes, I am.
Hi, hello. I need to make, do you have something to show?
I've got a quick video that I'll talk over.
Yeah, brilliant. Let me just make you a co-host because we have some issues with sharing screens. There you go. The floor is yours.
Thank you. One second. Share screen. So I'll quickly demonstrate that it does work and this video isn't a lie. Here's the actual configurator. So you can select, sorry, for those you haven't seen, I decided to build a game where you can build with WikiHouse. So I wanted to build a quick house, and it's got some basic rules that, like, floors can be placed on the floors, and then end pieces can be placed at the edge of floors. And then if you want to add walls, you have to go to the wall section and grab an XL wall and then a corner, and the corners can be placed on there as well. And then you can slowly build up an entire home. And I've skipped the combs and the pegs, but I'll probably add those in later. But the idea was that it would give you an idea of what a WikiHouse would look like in a very easy manner. So I was initially struggling with SketchUp. I also used Jen's amazing videos. Thank you for that. And then I think I came across this because I was looking at buying some Nikes, and Nike has this really cool, like, build your own shoe app. And I was like, I kind of want that for WikiHouse. So I decided to figure out how they did it, and it was using this game engine. But the most recent thing I've added is that I can highlight the group, and then it'll save it and it'll download this as an OBJ file. So you could import it to another system. And I'm also going to add DWG or DXF support, I think, because that will help with SketchUp. I believe that works with SketchUp. But the basic premise is that, like, it's a rules-based WikiHouse that at the end could give you a CSV of each of the components you use and how many of each you need to get cut. I like the idea of being able to, like, design a house on a website and have them ship it to you by mail. It probably isn't the hardest part of doing a WikiHouse, but it was, like, quite a fun project to work on. Actually, I don't think I need the video. This is pretty much everything. If anyone has any requests for other features, that would be great. It currently doesn't support the gabled roof, but it does support flat roofs. So I could just quickly add, like, another floor on. And I didn't put a limit on the number of floors because I wasn't certain. Oh, that's the wrong floor piece. This is why you have videos. But yeah, like, I would love to hear people's feedback either here or in Slack, and if they have any fun ideas what we could do with this. I think that's everything.
That's brilliant. Thanks so much for sharing that. That looks so fun. So you're happy to take requests then from people?
Yes, I might not build them, but I probably will. I find it really interesting. Like, it's a nice little side project to work on. And yeah, if it can help people, that'd be great. There are limitations, like, you can only do straight houses. I don't know if WikiHouse supports L shapes or anything else. I couldn't figure it out. But yeah, I really enjoyed it, and I'm sure that others would get some benefit out of it. as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that. And yes, we can definitely let you know on Slack if there's anything else that we would like to see in Unity. It's just brilliant how you're using the platform. Last but not least, I just wanted to check if Jason is around, and he wanted to give us a quick update on what he's been working on. Jason, are you around?
Yes, I'm around. Hello.
Hello. Let me give you control. Where are you, Jason? So you can share. So Jason is part of the WikiHouse team, and he's a project designer. And as you know, I have been talking about this project that we are going to be building very, very soon, in fact, this weekend. And Jason has designed it. So if you just want to give us a quick overview, obviously we haven't built it yet, but you have been designing it. So maybe there's something you can talk about.
Yes, thank you, Mel. And thank you so much, Jen, Amber, and Lachlan. Really interesting work. Like, it's just so much passion in it. I just love it. So yeah, so just a very brief presentation from myself and the team. So it's basically, we've been working on this first Skylark build project in the UK. And we're actually going down to site tomorrow to actually build it. So it's going to be very interesting, somewhere in the UK, near Bakewell. So this project is called Peaks Barn. So as you can see, it's a 65-meter square double garage with sort of like an internal staircase to the loft. So it's basically an upper studio for an office or a music room for the client. So the process is the client already has planning approval for his design. So basically, he's very interested in using WikiHouse to build this project. So this is sort of his planning submission for the drawings. So so our initial step with him is to basically come up with an outline model to try to fit the WikiHouse system using simple Skylark blocks. So as you can see, these are different elevations of the garage. And then from there, we engage with a structural engineer to create a more detailed chassis model. So basically, full on basically putting all the ties in and making sure the blocks fit together and so forth. And from there, we created the cutting files for each block. So there's around 21 blocks, and actually all of them are, except the NL block is actually modified and bespoke. That's because the site is actually very windy. So there are a lot of things that we need to strengthen, and I'll talk to you about some of the examples that we did for these blocks. And then from there, we basically quickly assemble a rough assembly manual for us to use for tomorrow. So let's see. So yeah, so as I was talking to you about the some of the modified blocks. So so the image on the left is basically the window, one of the windows that the client wants to use as the existing window. So the idea of this is that the window is fixed, and then the client wants a certain height, and as a result, there won't be a lintel for this window. So in some sense, that we had to modify the positions of the pegs, so that, I don't know if you can see this clearly, but the combs on top, we've actually included a splice plate. So basically so that we can drop it in and then plug the pegs in just to basically attach it to the end beam. And also the image on the right is basically a roof block. And because there's such strong wind loads on site, we need to use double trimmers on the sides. And then that means that we need to modify the pegs to accommodate this triple webs of the block. And because we wanted to do the checks as well in conjunction with sending the cutting files to the manufacturer. So we've done these in various packages. So so far we have done like 7 packages. While so the advantage of this is basically we have more time to actually draw and revise on the files and on the blocks with the structural engineer. But the disadvantage is because when we actually already sent some of the packages in, and then when we go back and we realize, oh, there's something that might need to be changed. So there's more back and forth in the process that we've learned. Yeah, so it's gonna be very exciting because within the span of 2 months of actually producing everything from the detailed chassis model, liaising with the structural engineer, to actually producing the assembly manuals, it's quite nerve-wracking, and I just hope that like tomorrow's build will be not too bumpy, like because we might anticipate there will be a missing tie or somewhere the blocks don't fit, or bad weather or so on. But yeah, so we're very excited to share the footages that we get from tomorrow, and yeah, and let's see how it goes. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Thanks for sharing that. As I said, yes, after the build this weekend, we will definitely have much more information and footage and videos and photos, everything we can gather, and we'll share with you in the community. So thanks for that. I don't know if people have any questions for our speakers. We still have some time. I see a question from Jen actually that says the current gable walls don't have a space for windows in them. Will they become available in the regular WikiHouse design kits? Maybe somebody from the team can answer that question.
I'm happy to take that, Mel. Yeah, yes, they will. This particular design is not a standard gable end wall because it's essentially a roof sitting directly on a floor, sort of an A-frame loft space. Whereas the more standard gables where you've got a ground floor and then walls that go all the way up to the ceiling. So there will be both, but we do need to do a bit of a debrief and decode of what the lessons that we've got from this. There's quite a few idiosyncrasies with this particular design that are challenges to do with the site and trying to modify the blocks to fit with an existing planning application. Which is why the window locations are a bit strange, and there's we don't have lintels over them, which we normally have. So yeah, over the next few weeks we'll sort of reverse engineer some of this back into standard parts and get this uploaded into the library.
Brilliant, thanks, Clayton. Jen, you also asked, would it make sense if WikiHouse were to have a repository where customized parts can be shared? Can you say a little bit more about that? Not sure I know.
Yeah, of course, that's Tone. I'll let him speak.
Yes, I asked that question. Well, I think as time progresses, I think more and more people who actually build with WikiHouse will need custom components. And it'd be a shame if all that effort that people put into creating these would go to waste. So it's not self-evident that people would share that, but I think if it be facilitated, that would be very useful for the community.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's a really good idea, especially as more things get built all over the place. I know obviously Jason mentioned the fact that the site tomorrow is quite windy, so the customizations happen because of that, and depending on where you're building, things will be different. So yeah, that's brilliant. I have a question for Amber, actually, if she's still around. I know you mentioned how you'd found the videos that Jen made really useful. I'm not asking for requests because I'm not asking Jen to make any more videos, but in terms of if there's anything else that could help at the stage where you're building, if it's videos, for example, or any other guides, is there anything else, Amber, that you would appreciate at this stage in your project? Okay.
So you mean like videos that we could use for where we're
Yeah,
at now?
videos, guides, anything else. Because we are at the stage we can, yeah.
So for me, I've been really geeking out on SketchUp. So that's what I was watching and rewatching Jennifer's videos. And then the other software was like things like VCarve and that sort of a thing. But what I've been sort of geeking out on is just what I need to know to use for WikiHouse system. So I don't need to know everything about 3D modeling or everything about how to use CNC router software. So I don't know if that's a bit vague, but just basically stuff that would help as far as going through the design phase, like with what Lachlan and Jennifer's doing, where you can use that to kind of look at what you're wanting to build and what that will mean in terms of components and materials and what the hours might mean, that sort of a thing. Outside of that, I think the things we probably need guidance with now is where we go from actually building the structure and the frame to then doing the finishing. So like the cladding, or even before that, how we would do the foundations. That's probably more of a general building type of a thing, but it kind of relates to, we can put together like WikiHouse blocks now, but then once we've done that, how do we actually then start to put it out into a real project on the ground? So yeah, so I think for me, I don't know if that answers it very well, but for me, that's the kind of things that we're kind of searching for the guidance on. So yeah.
I think there'll be also some stuff we will be feeding back into this process, because we're not, like, I don't want to go around building these houses all the time. So we need to come and bring our family in to train them how to do this so that they can go to the different parts of Wairarapa and build their own kind of communal areas. So we're kind of wanting to train up people to be able to do that so that we can ship a van out with all the parts and the modules. Well, it's probably going to be a bit bigger than a van, but a truck, and just drop it off on site. Yeah, I think that's, and then some of the stuff around how, so at the moment, seismic testing is a massive thing for us with the Christchurch earthquake, and we're on a fault line at the moment, which is meant to be release one of the biggest earthquakes apparently, because it is it's not having a lot of micro earthquakes, and so wind is a massive issue here. And so one of the things we've been told is that Wairarapa has some of the harshest environments in New Zealand. So if we can get it right here, then it can pretty much get it right for most of New Zealand. And this is also what made Christchurch bad in terms of the earthquakes, is they built on swamps. So all of this area is actually drained of swamps, and they have built on top of it. And so that's what we're kind of cautious about as well, just making sure that it's safe for our people. But there will be an element of risk because we are Māori and we're Indigenous people, and we don't trust the system either. That's the government system, that is. And so there will be an element where if we are happy, just because they have rules doesn't mean that we will necessarily follow them. So there is a little bit of leeway for us to be able to challenge the system as a whole.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And can I just check, did you say that there's going to come a point where you just want to have the parts ready to go and have people build these things, but they will need some basic training, this is how you assemble things, video or resource of some sort?
Yeah, so we're trying to, because it's only just the two of us at the moment, but we have a whole bunch of fun. Sorry, I didn't realize how many Māori words I use in my everyday language until I have to talk to people from around the world. So I have a lot of whānau members who are ready to go. Some of them have pieces of land where they really want to build communal areas now. But because we're still going through sort of the building consent process, we have, if all else fails, there is the option to go to, which is the earthship way, which is use. So pretty much if we can build a whare, have it up for 5 years and it still stands, then they can consider that as consentable after that, because it's tried and tested. I don't really want to wait 5 years because a lot of our family are dying from cold, damp homes and respiratory issues and stuff like that. So 5 years is too long for us, but that's a backup option if we can. So just working through some of this, and we also have a lot of family in building who are builders, so we're trying to bring them in and reskill them as well, so that we can potentially send a builder who has some form of the building industry today, along with maybe a team who have trained up and has built some of this, out to site and then they will help train whānau on the ground, because we found, because it's so intuitive, that actually if you can just have some of those people on site, then that would assist as well. Hopefully that all made sense.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That makes sense. Thank you. Thanks for answering that. Finally, I've got something from Lachlan saying, I would appreciate a global database of contractors that have worked or want to work on WikiHouse. It would be great if we could help connect people who want to build a WikiHouse with people who can actually build it. So yeah, I can answer that. We do have a provisional wait list of contractors all over the world. So it's open to anybody who has the ability to design or assemble or manufacture. We haven't done much with it, to be honest, since the launch. It's in a waiting inbox just now, but we are building a list, which is the important thing. Also, Ross in Australia is saying they are searching for a structural engineer. Again, we are gathering names of structural engineers, architects all over the world. So if we do have someone in Australia, Ross, I'll send those details over to you. I don't know if there's any more questions or if anybody else wants to say anything, anyone from the team who wants to say anything. Oh, sorry, there's something from Chas. He is looking to integrate housing repos and versioning timestamps on his server project. Do you have a master list of public repos for libraries and software tool references for the common user to more easily integrate past and present projects into their own current advancements to public repos? I'm guessing we don't have that yet, but Clayton, maybe you can say a little bit more on that.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you're looking for both from the software side of things, but potentially some repos for hardware, because the hardware stuff is probably harder to integrate. And are you trying to link with other open source projects as well, Chaz? Just trying to understand your question here. Might not be around to talk. Yeah, it's something we could, if you send through a bit of a description of what you're trying to do, we can see if we can help. I don't think we've got a master list of all repositories other than the ones that we're monitoring, which is the ones on the WikiHouse project GitHub itself. It's anything that we're in charge of. We don't have a lot of dependencies. It's not like a software project where there's external libraries and things like that we were dependent on. But a bit like what Jen and Amber were saying is that there's a range of other tools outside of WikiHouse itself that are useful to building WikiHouses. And maybe those could be collated somewhere. And actually some of the guides link to external sources where you can find useful things like software for CNC manufacturing and other things like that. But the rest of it, we might have to link you through to our software team, Jess, on the... We're actually having a hackathon slightly related to this in London in June, where we will look at potentially some of the software and workflow challenges around WikiHouse. And Gabrielle has been doing some work on a structural engineering tool, but there's also people interested in how you build easy sort of workflow tools that can link into the WikiHouse library directly. So you're not doing this manual process of downloading models and then trying to replace stuff yourself in CAD.
Yeah, and obviously the hackathon is happening in London, but after it happens, even if you can't make it, we will share everything that we learn from it. So yeah, and with that, I'm just going to close the meeting now. We've run over 7 minutes, but thank you so much for joining us. It's so good to see your faces, to hear from you.
Could I say something?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I just so sorry. In New Zealand, we have Māori, who are the Indigenous people, and within it we have iwi, which they're kind of like tribes, right? So one of the things is I can't go to a different tribe and tell them how to do things. So part of this, as well as we have a few other tribes in different areas that are very interested in this. So giving them the tools, of course, decentralizing and stuff is just something that we live for. It's everything that we're trying to get back to. One of the things that has kind of popped up, which I kind of was wanting to maybe chat to someone about, is the fact that we could be designing what we call marae and as meeting houses, and it's very sacred to us, but it's the option for an Indigenous closed open source network, if that kind of makes sense, because there is some stuff that we may want to design in this that culturally is too sacred to just expose to everyone, but could be given to other Indigenous people. And so I guess just at some stage having some conversations about that, because especially the micro house wren house looks very much like our meeting houses. And so we've had a lot of our family say, could you please rebuild our marae with that? Which poses some questions for us about how we want to, so some questions about just the share and how that works.
Yeah, totally. We can have a chat about that. No worries. Let's do that another time. Just now, I just want to say again, thank you, especially thanks to our speakers, to Amber, to Jen, and to Lachlan, and to Jason as well. And guys, let's just continue this chat in the community. Yeah, great to see you this morning or evening, wherever you are. Thank you so much, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.